in my opinion, the most well-prepped team, and they had the most targeted plans out of anyone. And I think that CFO kind of echoed that. The way they dispatched of T1, I think, was really a super good.
I could ask Upset,
specifically
maybe, if Upset wants to join.
Which was owner, the very early invade. And we see Humble Life also taking lessons with that Kiana banned away from Junja.
Well, Aurora, Azir, both very powerful mid laners.
Okay, Corki banned away.
But we do know that CFO do have a tendency to lean more.
I really hope that as the tournament progresses, things like Ryze and Azir stop being blind picks.
I feel like if CFO don't prioritize it, this is something that Viper will happily take off the board.
Yeah, and one thing that we haven't really spoken about, which is a little bit more of an overarching thing, is the fact that we had 2 days off. And so developments could actually exist here in this draft. Not so far, though, because the Orianna has been first pick priority for quite some time. I imagine that the
Orianna B1, okay.
Like
so, Orianna obviously weak to artillery or anything that can outrange, out zone control her, but we don't expect to see things like that end up getting picked. So generally at the pro level, Orianna ends up just being like this really imbalanced, you know, kind of blind. Dude, Peanut, I don't know what is going on with Peanut. Like, dude, his face feels like it's morphed so many times. He's not doing plastic surgery. I think it just has to do with like weight fluctuations and like overall hygiene and stuff. I don't know. He does not look like the same person from like a year ago. I guess, I don't know. I guess it's like, no, I'm doing my autism stuff. Right, like,
they immediately switch on over to the Azir, something that Zeka, we've seen a fair amount of from him throughout the year. And I imagine that paired alongside the Yunara, already you're looking at a very stable and secure front-to-back style of composition.
And we've really gone back and forth on Zeka, where at first Azir was one of the champions that obviously was added to the melee pool very early on. And then there was a large period where he could kind of play everything. And then this year we've really seen him struggles, even on pick that he's been historically great on. I do think Azir is one of those champions that you just need to be able to play within the LCK. And really anywhere, but in the LCK in particular, we have a couple of really big endurers of this champion. So not playing it isn't an option. Would mean that the Xin Zhao is going to go over to Junja here. That is still a great combo with the Orianna. I don't think it's as like team fight heavy as a Jarvan would, because you also have the ability to go in with the R and then follow up from there. But still, very strong amount of early skirmishing here, already locked in for CFO.
I'm wondering how priority things like Cassante would be if they're interested in tanks. It looks like it's going to be very high priority.
Yeah. I would say they'll choose to do that.
Yeah, it looks like that's what they're going to do. So now you have the choice of, do you lock in your jungle here for HLE to make sure that you have a solid matchup? Because as you mentioned, that there are still a good number of junglers left that you can play into the Xin Zhao. Alternatively, you can get that top lane counter. But we know that Zeus is someone that has a very deep pool, is probably very flexible with what he's played into the Cassante. So I expect the jungle to come through, given that Zeus has so much flexibility in his options.
I'm looking at Poppy. Jarvan is, again, I think a pick that has been very often talked about, does still have a decent amount of power, but I don't love it.
Jarvan on R3 with Azir. The thing right now is that the scaling for HLE, I would probably argue, is a little bit better. There's also the thing that I actually have been noticing this at Worlds, and Drutu has also consistently pointed it out. Pro players also keep maxing the wrong abilities on Cassante. Fuck, I'm getting the runs right now. God damn it. Oh my god.
That I know Chronicle you're a huge fan of and think is very balanced.
Yeah.
Looking forward to seeing whether they do get rid of the Nico or not. That was sarcasm, by the way, everyone at home, in case you didn't pick that one up. He hates that champion.
I think Nico's. This is the amount of engages I've seen.
The current iteration of power level at this point in time.
Sounds like he hates Nico.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Caitlyn getting banned away is a little bit strange, because you can always respawn top on R4, and then you can counter pick support. So there's no Caitlyn pairings that you need to be that afraid of when you have Yunara.
Coming through from Humble Life as we try to move on from the conversation. Well, I think it makes sense that they don't want to play into it. Trying to very best.
Alistar banned away doesn't really make any sense, because if you're HLE, you don't want Alistar with your champion pairings against CFOs, because it's not providing anything of value. When CFO have like matching range on you and you have Yunara, typically when you have Yunara, there's actually a lot of enchanters that ideally you would like to get if you can, even though yes, she does pair really well with certain bruisers. The Braum ban, I think, is actually totally fine against what CFO is showing.
Thinking about, yeah, I mean, I think it is a, no, I mean,
So-
like the safest would be something like Lucian or Ezreal, and it is Doggo, so I feel like that
Okay.
he's more
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be top R4 and then support on R5.
The Rumble locked in though for Zeus, no real surprises there, but not necessarily something we say checkmate as far as the top
I don't
lane
necessarily
is
like
concerned.
the Rumble as
Well,
much as some other
Dream is pretty
Cassante
good.
counters, like Garen or even Jax in this instance, because Jax has value even against Xin. And then he has stickiness even against Story. And then obviously Garen's really good because they don't have any real CC. So Garen can just run. So Rumble, I'm not a super big fan of. Obviously they have Cataclysm, so there is a little bit more value to Equalizer. Ezreal's going to come in. This might just be Ezreal Karma as like a vacuum.
Basically the dream start, it worked out really well, but Ezreal is just so insanely safe. It takes away a lot of the value from that Jarvan.
Nami could also be.
Ezreal Yumi.
I was thinking of two other enchanters, Kaiwing. I gave you two others that you could
If Yumi gets picked, it's a perfect opportunity, honestly, to just go Sona.
Oh no, that look
The
on
time
his
is-
face. Oh, thank
Okay,
you.
Nami is very bad. Nami is considerably bad.
This is what we come to expect from Kaiwing. Definitely one of his special picks.
That's-
And he had a great performance on it as well.
What the
So
fuck?
already in this tournament, it just helps a lot with the poke. It gives you a little bit of sustain, but also that disengage ultimate to help with the
Sona is still
job,
pickable,
looking to
for sure. We're never going to have things like that get picked, though, so it's important to note. Okay, Rakan. Yeah, I mean, I think HLE for the most part, I think, just have a much better time. There is more range on the side of CFO, but the engage is so fast for HLE, and I don't think there's a reliable enough way to stifle it for CFO with the champions that they have.
Of this Rakan specifically, looking at the composition for Hanwha, I think it's very cohesive. Obviously, plays very
where's
well,
the-
very far forward. I do think they can struggle with the lack of front line if they end up getting into like these kind of classic front to backs. In the early